Hello. Everybody hear me? Hear me in the back? Let me see some hands back there. Good. Okay. Well, it is just absolutely, just give me one more second. We have one other technical difficulty. You can't have an old guy without his glasses, right? I'm actually, what is it, 108 years old. I don't know. I hope I look at least a little younger than that. I still feel like I'm 12 years old on the inside, but if every year in a startup counts as two, that makes me actually officially 108. So I am probably the oldest presenter you have ever seen. And when I did my very first startup, when I was about your age, I was 22. I quit a spectacular job. My working class mother and father were very upset. My father tried to get me to go to see a psychiatrist. My mother was scared to death. At the time, I had a job as a radio broadcaster. My voice was maybe a little stronger than it is today with my terrible cold. In today's US dollars, I was making $250,000 a year. And I said, I want to quit, Mom and Dad. In fact, I have quit. I didn't have to ask their permission. I had my own money, my own apartment. Why did I want to quit? Did I want to be Mark Zuckerberg? Mark Zuckerberg was still in diapers at the time. It wasn't because I wanted to be rich. It wasn't because I had an investor. It wasn't because I thought maybe I would make piles and piles of money. I wanted to do my thing. I wanted to be my own boss. I wanted to build something with my name on it. And today, particularly in the Russian region, those are much better reasons to build a startup on your own, to go out and do a startup. Because it's hard. It's brutally hard. And somebody's got to tell me if I'm talking for 3 hours or 4 hours, Olga, so we have some idea of how fast I should go. So somebody find Olga and let me know about that. And the other thing we're checking on is whether we'll give you a little coffee break at somewhere along the way. But Olga, you heard that question? 3 hours or 4 hours? 4 hours. Okay. Sit back, relax. We have a lot to cover. What you're going to see in the next 4 hours is probably about 1/8 of a week-long version of this seminar, but I hope it gives you enough to give you a totally different way to think about your startup. A totally different way to build your startup with less advice from investors and professors and much more advice from the only people who matter, not your mother and father, not your best friend or your girlfriend or your boyfriend, and not from me or Steve Blank. Only people that matter about helping you build a great startup are your customers, the people who are going to give you money for whatever your product or service might be. And that really is the very heart of customer development that we're going to explore together this afternoon. This is, I believe, my 11th trip to Russia. I know that Tatarstan is not exactly Russia, but it's the same neighborhood. My first trip here was in 1990, back when it was just awakening from a very different era. And personally, I don't really care about the politics of all of that. Entrepreneurs are non-political humans. All they want to do is do something great, whether it's in China or North Korea or Ohio or anywhere else. And the joy of my task is so joyous that calling it work would be dishonest. I just so enjoy traveling the world, talking to bright, dedicated young entrepreneurs like you, and hopefully giving you some good ideas about how to make your businesses stronger, and discouraging those of you who don't have what it takes to be a really great entrepreneur and build a great company. For some of you, perhaps a better career path might be to get a good job in a good bank or oil company or energy company or whatever. But for those of you with the drive and the tenacity to fight for it, you can do great things and have great independence in your lives. My other 10 trips to your region have all happened just in the past 3 or 4 years, since basically the launch of the Startup Owners Manual. And in December of 2013, on a typical December week in Moscow, traveling around in ice and snow and in Moscow subways because the traffic didn't work at all, or didn't move at all, launching the Startup Owners Manual in Russian, where almost from the day it came out to, I believe, still this week, it is one of the top 10 business best-selling books throughout the Russian region. And it gives me great pride, in particular because half of me is of Russian origin, from Belarus. My mother's parents emigrated to the U.S. from Belarus, probably almost 100 years ago, or right about 100 years ago. And I don't know which half of me is the Russian half, but I have a suspicion it's the half that likes good vodka and beautiful Russian women. So anyway, let's get started, okay? I first want to make you understand that this is not some American marketing fad that happens to be passing through and somebody needed somebody to talk during Global Entrepreneurship Week, which on Saturday I had the high honor of being the keynote launch speaker to 40,000 entrepreneurs in 140, I think it was, countries all over the world, kicking off what I actually said Saturday, I think, was for entrepreneurs as important as Christmas Day, the most important day of the year for entrepreneurs. Thousands of events all over the world to help find young people like you build fine businesses for a generation. This customer development methodology we're going to talk about has been used successfully by thousands of startups, thousands all over the world. And almost every couple times a week, not quite every day, I get a love letter from some entrepreneur somewhere. You know what you told me? Or you know what I read in your book? That just helped us get a big customer, get a big investor, things like that. I own no stock in any entrepreneurship, any startup that I coach. So I do it because it's just a wonderful thing for an old guy to do. And a great sort of, extra bonus chapter of my own professional life, which included 7 startups, investment in 27 others, and we'll talk about that briefly in a minute. Later this week, I'll be back in Moscow for my 7th Launch Gurus Startup Academy. It will get me to just about 200 total entrepreneurs I've worked with each for a week in one of those Startup Academy programs. And the customer development method is used not only here in Russia, it's used literally all over the world. Our book is now in 20 languages: Chinese, Japanese, Taiwanese, Polish, Turkish, and even English. And the methodology is used by our National Science Foundation and taught in 400 universities. So this is real. This is not some guy from the U.S. coming to tell you about the latest get-rich-quick idea or the latest you-can-do-it rah-rah speech. Because the thing that we always forget when we get excited about startups is that most of them fail. Most of them fail, and they fail in a pile of blood and gore and bones and body parts and sweat. And it's your blood and bones and body parts and sweat, or mine. Trust me, I've given many, many pints or liters of blood to startups that have gone down in flames. But they don't fail because we're dumb or we're bad. They don't fail because the technology isn't great. They fail because they aren't exciting to customers. This whole methodology, Steve Blank, how many of you have heard of Steve Blank? Let's see hands. How many? Not enough. SteveBlank.com is a Bible for entrepreneurs. You don't have to carry a 3-pound book around to use it. www.steveblank.com. Hundreds of articles, videos, links to tons of information that can help you. And 15 years ago, after setting 2 Silicon Valley records, Steve said, okay, no more startups. After 8 startups, I'm going to spend the next 15 years of my life for almost no income, no compensation, figuring out a new way to build startups built around the customer instead of the product. It seems so basic, so logical, so obvious. But as you'll see, as we'll talk about in the next few minutes, nobody ever thought of it that way before, till Crazy Steve came along. And Steve's 2 Silicon Valley records gave him the privilege, the opportunity to do this. And he did it working as hard as any entrepreneur ever worked. Trust me, I spent 2 years side by side with him writing the Startup Owner's Manual till 4, 5, 6 in the morning. Sometimes we'd work so hard that at 6 in the morning we would jump in the jacuzzi or the hot tub, not together, we're not that kind of friends, just to get our brains cleared. Or he lives on a ranch with 20 miles of hiking trails. We'd go out and hike up a mountain to clear our brains. So Steve Blank's 2 Silicon Valley records. The first one gave him the opportunity to say, I'm not going to bother making money anymore. I'm going to do something great for entrepreneurs in Kazan, in China, in America, all over the world. Record number 8, his 8th startup, Epiphany, in the shortest time on record in Silicon Valley, went from a PowerPoint presentation to a market cap, a valuation of $8 billion US in literally less than about 3.5 years, okay? So that gave him the ability to sit back on his 750-acre ranch on the Pacific Ocean and figure this stuff out, and to invest in a company. Once he figured it out, he said, well, all I have is my idea of what this stuff is and how it works. How am I going to test it? I know. I'll invest a pile of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, in a startup and make them use the method and see if it really works in the real world. One of the chief technology officer, not the CEO of that company, was a guy named Eric Ries. How many of you have heard of Eric Ries? Not enough. Eric Ries was Steve's very first student when Steve taught this at University of California at Berkeley. He wrote a book, The Lean Startup. It's a wonderful, wonderful book. It's translated into Russian. It's available as an ebook, and I can't recommend it, or of course our book, more to all of you. And if you think about Eric's book, it's the why do we do things this way in the 21st century. And if you think about the Startup Owner's Manual is, okay, well, if you agree with the why, how do I do it? Eric's book, more fun to read. Ours tells you, keep working, beat the crap out of yourselves. There's more to do and more to do and more to do. And it's all about figuring out not how to build the product so much as what to build and what customers will tear out of your hands and give you money for in good economies and bad. So record number 8, $8 billion gave he didn't get it all, but he got enough of it which would make the entire room full of us happy. Gave him the luxury of being able to dedicate 15 years of unpaid service to the world's entrepreneurs. But that's not where the methodology